Loneliness isn't an emotion. It's a biological alarm. Your brain treats it exactly the same way it treats starvation. Not metaphorically. Chemically. And right now, more people are triggering that alarm than at any other point in recorded human history. There is something in the way you are reading this right now that by the end of this video you will understand differently than you do in this moment. In 2023, the World Health Organization declared loneliness a global health epidemic. Not a social problem. Not a mental health concern. An epidemic. The same classification they use for infectious disease. They estimated that 1 in 4 adults worldwide has no meaningful social connection. Not fewer than they'd like. None. And the mortality data behind that number is the part nobody is talking about. Chronic loneliness increases your risk of early death by 26%. It raises your risk of heart disease by 29%. Stroke by 32%. It accelerates cognitive decline faster than alcohol abuse. And it does all of this completely silently, while you go about your day feeling nothing more than a vague, unnamed ache you probably blame on something else entirely. Here is what is actually happening inside you. Your brain evolved over hundreds of thousands of years inside small tribes of 25 to 50 people. Connection wasn't a preference. It was a survival mechanism. A human alone on the savannah was a human about to be eaten. So your brain developed a system to make sure you never stayed isolated for long. That system is loneliness. When your brain detects that you are socially disconnected, it triggers the same threat response it uses for physical danger. Your amygdala fires. Your cortisol spikes. Your nervous system shifts into hypervigilance. You start scanning your environment not for food or predators, but for social threat. Who is pulling away? Who didn't respond? Who looked at you differently today? Neuroscientist John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago spent 30 years studying this system. He found that lonely brains don't just feel different. They function differently. Structurally. Measurably. In ways that show up on a brain scan before the person sitting in the scanner has said a single word about how they feel. The lonely brain processes the world as more threatening. Neutral faces get read as hostile. Ambiguous social situations get interpreted as rejection. A friend who takes 3 hours to reply to a text becomes evidence of abandonment. This isn't paranoia. It's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. It detected isolation. It went into survival mode. And survival mode, in a social species, means threat detection at maximum sensitivity. But here's the part that changes everything. That heightened threat response costs something. Running your nervous system at high alert burns through resources your body normally uses for repair. Your immune system gets redirected. Inflammation increases. The same inflammatory markers that show up in people fighting infections show up in people who are chronically lonely. Your body is treating social isolation the same way it treats a wound. Because for most of human history, it was one. In 2015, researchers at Brigham Young University ran a meta-analysis of 148 studies covering more than 300,000 people. Their conclusion was precise and devastating. The effect of loneliness on mortality was equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Stronger than obesity. Stronger than physical inactivity. Stronger than air pollution. And unlike those risks, loneliness carries almost no public awareness, no warning labels, no campaigns. You have never seen a billboard that said loneliness is killing you. But the data has been sitting there for a decade. Now, here is where it gets strange. The loneliness epidemic didn't arrive when humans became more isolated. It arrived when humans became more connected than they had ever been in history. The steepest rise in reported loneliness began in 2012. The same year smartphone adoption crossed 50% in the developed world. The same year the average person's daily screen time began its vertical climb. This is not a coincidence that researchers are still trying to explain away. They have mostly stopped trying. What social media gave us was the appearance of connection without the biological requirements of it. Your brain did not evolve for likes. It evolved for eye contact. For shared meals. For physical proximity. For the specific neurochemical cocktail that only releases when another human being is genuinely present with you. Oxytocin. The hormone responsible for trust and bonding, doesn't release through a screen. It requires touch. Proximity. Real-time presence. Everything else is a simulation your cortex can process but your nervous system cannot use. Cacioppo called it the difference between perceived social connection and actual social connection. And his data showed something that should make every person reading a comments section uncomfortable. People with high social media use but low in-person contact showed the same neurological markers as people with no social contact at all. The brain wasn't fooled. It never is. So if loneliness is a biological alarm designed to drive you back toward connection, why doesn't it work? Why do chronically lonely people so often stay lonely? This is the cruelest part of the system. The same hypervigilance that loneliness creates to push you toward people also makes people feel dangerous. The lonely brain that reads neutral faces as hostile is the same brain that now has to walk into a room full of strangers and try to connect. The alarm that was meant to motivate you ends up paralyzing you instead. Cacioppo described it as a trap with no obvious exit from the inside. And it compounds. Every year of chronic loneliness rewires the threat detection system slightly further towards sensitivity. The longer it runs, the harder the room becomes to walk into. The harder the text becomes to send. The louder the voice that says nobody actually wants you there anyway. This is not a character flaw. It is a biological feedback loop that your brain built to save your life in a world that no longer exists. The world your brain was built for had no option to stay home. No delivery. No streaming. No feed that would fill the silence well enough to make isolation feel survivable. The alarm worked because there was nowhere to hide from it. Now there is. And millions of people are hiding. Here is what the research actually points toward. The antidote to loneliness is not more contact. It is specific contact. Cacioppo's data showed that 1 or 2 relationships of genuine depth did more for the neurological markers of loneliness than broad social networks of dozens. Quality over quantity is not a platitude here. It is a measurable biological fact. The brain doesn't need an audience. It needs witnesses. People who know the actual shape of your life and show up for it anyway. That specific experience, being genuinely known by another person, is what triggers the neurochemical response that tells your nervous system the alarm can stand down. Most people are not looking for that. They are looking for relief from the feeling. More scrolling. More noise. More content to fill the space where presence used to be. That works. For about as long as a painkiller works on a broken bone. The alarm is still running underneath. Your body is still counting the cigarettes. Now go back to the beginning of this video. The thing you were doing when you started watching. The way you found it. The screen you are on right now. You were not looking for information about loneliness. You were filling a moment of silence. And your brain, the one running the alarm, chose this. It was not random. It was the system doing the only thing it knows how to do when it cannot find what it actually needs. It kept searching. In the 1930s, an average American had close daily contact with around 15 to 20 people they knew personally. By 2023, that number had dropped to fewer than 3. The geometry of human life shrank while the simulation of it expanded into every screen in every pocket on the planet. Your brain inherited the social requirements of a species that spent 300,000 years sleeping next to the same 30 people every night. It does not know what to do with 1,000 followers and an empty apartment. It only knows one thing. The alarm is on. And it will keep running until you answer it.